Hello everyone. This video is going to be a continuance of my bond videos. Last video, I explained the basic characteristics of bonds. This video, we're going to get into a transaction where you will complete the amortization of a bond using the straight line method. You will also complete the original journal entry when you issue the bond. I will show you how to complete that with a discount and when it's a premium. Okay, so if we look over to the board, this is exactly the same as my PowerPoint. So Jet Company sells bonds for $92,976.39 on January 1st, 2020. The bonds have a face value of $100,000 and a 12% stated annual rate. The stated rate will always be the amount you figure the cash interest on. Interest is paid semi-annual and the bonds mature in 5 years. This video is going to be longer than my other videos just because I want to make sure you understand every single detail associated with the bond. So let's talk about the particulars. Semi-annual interest. What does that mean? That means that this bond is going to pay interest twice a year. There's annual interest, semi-annual. There could be quarterly, which is 4 times a year. Most bonds will be paid semi-annual interest. So I want you to understand that's twice a year. Next thing that we're going to look at is the stated annual rate. There's 2 different ways to figure out the cash interest payment. I like to do it a quicker way, but whatever way that you want to do it, if you want to do it the same as the publisher, I'll show you both ways. So what I do before I begin is the stated annual interest rate is 12%. So what I'm going to do is take that interest rate, the 12%, which I like decimals, you know that, 0.12, I'm going to divide that by 2, and that equals 0.06. Not 0.6, right? 0.06. Okay? You'll see what I do with that later on. The reason that I do that is because I'm trying to compensate for this interest rate that is now going to be paid twice a year. This 12% is an annual interest rate. So I want to compensate, and I'm going to divide this by 2. Second thing I'm going to do is I want to look at how long this bond is going to last. So it says that this bond is going to last 5 years. So what I have to do to compensate for the number of time periods this bond will pay is I'm going to take the 5 years and I'm going to multiply it by 2. And what does that mean? 10 periods. So this bond will pay interest for 10 periods. I have to compensate for that. Okay, next thing that I'm going to look at is, I'm going to erase. I have a lot of notes on this one. All right, so now we're going to do the journal entry. Okay. All right, so this journal entry is when you first issue the bond. I talked to you last video that you can eye this before you even begin. So let's eye it. The company sells bonds for $92,976.39. That's what it's sold for in the market. The investors purchased this bond for $92,976.39. What did the company originally want for the bond? The face value of the bond is $100,000. Boom, that's a discount. That's sold for a discount. So let's do the original journal entry when they issue the bond. Whatever the bond sells for, that's your cash. So you debit cash, 92 976.39. I'm going to skip a few spaces. When you work in the lab, remember, always list your debits first. Okay, so I'm going to skip and I'm going to credit the bond payable. Remember, the bond payable is always the face value of the bond. It doesn't matter whether it's a premium or a discount. So I go over, I credit the bond payable, $100,000. Okay, we look, we're not balanced. They had to discount it. The discount is just a plug. It's the plug between the difference. So in your calculator, you take 100,000, you subtract 92,976.39, and that gives you a discount on bond payable. All right, I'm going to abbreviate, but in the lab, discount on bond payable, and it's going to be $7,023.61. Okay? So this is what they had to discount this bond for. Now make sure you understand each particular piece of this. Cash is an asset. You're increasing your cash. You're debiting that. Discount on bond, contra liability, which means it's the opposite of a regular liability. You're also increasing that when you first issue the bond. That's why you're debiting. The bond payable, liability, regular, you credit. Okay, so this is when you first issue the bond. All right, now we're going to figure out our first interest payment. So I'm going to erase because there's going to be a lot of different steps of this. So let me erase this and let me tell you how you're going to figure out the particulars. Okay, let's first figure out the cash interest payment. So this is the cash interest payment. How do you figure that out? Well, you find the stated interest rate in the problem. Stated interest rate is 12%. Remember, this is straight line amortization. There is another method, it's called the effective interest method. That will be in a different level of accounting. In accounting 2, I just like to bring in the straight line amortization method. So the cash interest payment, remember, we already took this interest rate and we divided it by 2. We're going to take the par or the face value of the bond. We're going to take 100,000 and we're going to multiply that by 0.06. And that gives us $6,000. Okay? That's the way I like to do it. I'll show you quickly the way the publisher does it. The publisher takes, so this is 1 or 2. Publisher takes the face value of the bond, then they multiply it by the stated interest rate, then they take this number and they multiply it by a fraction, 6/12, and they get the same answer as what I just showed you. So either way is acceptable, you're going to get the same answer. Answer is $6,000. Okay, the second thing that we're going to figure out is the amortization of the discount. Well, what you originally start with is what you originally had in for the discount amount. Okay, so the original discount, going to look at my notes, was discount on bond was $7,023.61. You're going to amortize this equally. It's a straight line method. There is another method. It's completely different, but straight line is the same amount every period. So what you have to do is this is semi-annual, remember? So it was a 5-year bond, but in order to compensate for semi-annual, you're going to take those 5 years and you're going to multiply it by 2. So that's the 10 periods. So you just take 723.61, divide that by 10 periods. So the amortization amount is 702.36. Okay, 702.36. Let me just double check. I don't want to have to reshoot this. Yep, 702.36. Round your number to 2 places after the decimal. So 702.36. Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to do our journal entry after we've figured those amounts out. The first journal entry will be in 6 months. So the first journal entry is June 30th, 2020, 6 months after when we first issued the bond. We have debit, we have credit. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do the interest expense last. Okay, so always do the interest expense last. All right, so let's do the cash amount for interest that we're going to pay. And we figured that out. That was $6,000. Next thing that we already figured out was the amortization. So we have discount on bond payable. Even though it's amortization, your textbook will call it discount on bond payable. And you will label that 702.36. Okay? All right, so always do the interest expense last. Well, when it's a discount, look, you know in order to balance, your debits have to equal your credits. So this is the interest expense. So when it's a discount and you're making your entry for amortization and interest expense, you will add the cash and the amortization. When you do, it's going to be $6,702.36. So your first journal entry, debit interest expense, $6,702.36. Credit cash, credit discount on bond payable. Make sure you're understanding or you'll get it wrong. So if you debited discount on bond payable, you're going to be wrong. So make sure you understand. You're decreasing the discount on bond payable. That's why you're crediting that account. It's a contra liability. To decrease it, you're going to credit. All right. The second part that you will see in the lab is that they state that for December 31st, 2020, they're going to complete an accrual for the interest. Remember, when you see the word accrual, that means that they have not yet paid cash. So this second journal entry will be a little different than the first. So let me keep up what will be exactly the same. Here's what will be exactly the same. You'll still, so I'm going to change the date. Okay. This is December 31st, 2020. What will be the same? The interest expense will be the same. You're still going to record that interest expense. The discount on bond payable will still be the same. However, it's an accrual. Don't touch cash. So I'm going to erase this account name. It will still be for $6,000. And I'm going to call it interest payable. Because it's an accrual. So that's for December 31st, 2020. Okay, now let me erase. And what they say is they pay it off on January 1st, 2021. So they pay the interest. Well, here's your accrual, the interest payable. So let me erase. So you're going to debit interest payable at that time, $6,000, and you'll credit cash, $6,000. The only reason why this is different is because they didn't pay for it at that time. Okay? All right, so that's an example of a discount. All right, next thing to look at is questions that it will be asked of you in the lab. Okay? Here's the first question. How much cash did Jet receive when it issued the bond? Well, that's right up here. The cash is whatever it's sold for. So your answer is $92,976.39. Second question, how much must Jet Company pay back at maturity? Well, they got to pay back the face value at maturity, along with interest, but they're asking how much that they will pay back at maturity. So your answer is the face value, $100,000. Next question they asked, what is the date that it will be paid off? All right, so again, use your fingers. January 1st, 2020 is when they issued the bond. Well, that's January 1st, 2020. That means they have the whole year of 2020. So count January 1st, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. So in 5 years, that bond will mature on December 31st, 2024. Okay? All right, next question. What is the amount of interest paid every 6 months for this problem? Well, that's your first interest expense amount. I showed you with a discount, you will add those two numbers together. So for this problem, the interest expense amount was $6,702.36. I kind of went out of order. So what is the amount of interest paid every 6 months? That is when you will take the face value of the bond, which is $100,000. You could do it two ways. You can multiply it by the annual interest rate divided by 2. That is 6%. Boom, you got your answer, $6,000. Or you can do it the same way as the publisher. They take the face value, they multiply it by 12%, which is the annual interest rate. Then they take that number and multiply it by 6/12. Why 6/12? Because it's semi-annual, okay? And that gives you $6,000. So that is entirely for a discount on bond. Now let's focus when it's a premium. Same details, stated interest rate is 12%. However, now the bond sells at $107,721.71. Well, what does that mean? You wanted $100,000 for your bond. It sold for more than what you originally wanted. That's a premium. All right, so let's do the basic journal entry. We go over here. We've got our debit. We've got our credit. Okay, so when it's a premium, you would debit your cash for that amount. So debit cash for whatever it's sold for, $107,721.71. Okay, and then we're going to credit the bond payable. Remember, always for the face value. Face value is $100,000. That was still the same. However, we're going to credit premium on bond. The premium on bond, just so you know, it's called an adjunct account to the bonds payable, but students find it easier if I say to them, it's just a regular liability. Okay, so you'll increase with a credit, you'll decrease with a debit. All right, so premium on bond payable is just the difference between the two. So I'm going to look at my notes. The difference between the two is $7,721.71. That's premium on bond. So this is when you first issue the bond. Okay, so maybe I can keep this one up here, all right, because I have more room. All right, so now your first interest payment on June 30th, 2020. Again, do the interest expense last. Okay, so we got to figure out what the amortization on the bond is. Okay, so let's figure that out first. So let me write that right here. So we're going to take, and I probably am going to erase it. We're going to take 7,721.71, and we're going to divide that by the total number of periods that we're going to amortize this bond. Now remember, it's a 5-year bond, but it's semi-annual interest, so we have to take the 5 years and multiply it by 2. So this is going to be divided by 10. So we're going to take 7,721.71 and divide that by 10. What does that equal? That equals 772.17. Most bonds aren't to the cent, but I just wanted to show you this one in the video with cents, okay? Because some of them can be this complicated. Most of yours in the lab will be rounded to a nice dollar figure. Okay, so I'm going to erase this number now. Everybody remember this number, 772.17. Okay, now we're going to do our journal entry. Cash, we already went over. I went over that one. So the cash interest payment. Okay, I'm going to do the interest expense last. I'll write it down, but I'm not going to put in the amount yet. Interest expense, so list your debits first. Okay, not yet. All right, so let me go to cash first. Cash is going to be credited, still $6,000. Okay, we went over how to figure out the amortization. That is $772.17, $772.17. Okay, all right, now this is a premium on bond. We are taking this off the books. We're decreasing this account. What do we have to do? To decrease it, the opposite of what we did to increase it. So this is why premium on bond, and remember, your publisher calls it bond payable. It is amortization, but they call it premium on bond payable. You're going to label that 772.17. That is a debit. Okay, so, you know, students always say to me, Professor Clay, sometimes I forget. Do I add when it's a premium? Do I subtract? Okay, so just know with accounting 1, you know your journal entries have to balance. You have a credit here. You have a debit. Well, what do you need in order to balance? You need to subtract this difference. If you didn't, you would not balance out. So when it's a premium, you will subtract the amortization when you're paying it. 6,000 minus 772.17 cents will give you 5,227.83. So your interest expense when it's a premium is 5,227.83. Okay? All right, so that's for June 30th, 2020. If December 31st, 2020, they paid cash, well, guess what? It's the exact same journal entry. If they did not, it's what I taught you with the discount. If they said they completed an accrual, this would not be cash, it would be interest payable. And then later on, you're going to eventually pay that payable down. Okay? All right, I know that was a lot in that video. What we went through was a straight line amortization on a bond payable and how to complete the first issuance when it's a discount or premium. Okay? All right. Have fun in the lab, everybody.